Thank you for coming to E-BikeKit.com. If you're watching this video, it's because you're having some trouble with your kit. Maybe something's not working, you're not sure what to do. This is the troubleshooting video. We're going to help you out. We're going to tell you a couple of steps here that are going to help you get to a happy place and get you back on the road. 9 times out of 10, if you have trouble with your kit, if something is not working, there is a disconnect, okay? So that is the major reason that people will call us and they'll say nothing's happening. And the reason is something's not plugged in all the way, or it's plugged in incorrectly, which is kind of hard to do with the latest model. But the first thing you want to do is unplug everything, plug it back in. Let's find that area of disconnect. Now, the things that you would be unplugging and plugging back in with the latest model kit are the throttle and the e-brakes, okay? This unplugging, plugging back in actually applies to any model you've ever gotten from E-BikeKit, because connectors are the main source of problems. If there's a disconnect with an electrical system, be it an E-BikeKit or any electrical system, it won't work. Nothing will happen, okay? And it looks like a big mystery. So let's go over the different connections real quick and unplug them and plug them back in. You have the throttle. You're going to disconnect your throttle here. You want to hear and feel 2 clicks. You can plug it right back in. You want to disconnect your e-brakes. If you're using them, you want to disconnect your e-brakes. You're going to unplug, plug right back in. You want to do that with both. E-brakes also, you want to make sure that your e-brake is not open. Okay, maybe you have the new Tektro on the latest model, maybe you have the older model with the switch. You want to make sure that it's not open, okay? If it's open, it's not going to allow anything to work. Next thing you want to do is the LCD. Make sure that's plugged in securely. You can unplug that. Line it up, be very careful to line it up, plug it back in firmly. We'll get into more troubleshooting in a minute with the LCD. Next is the accessory extension wire that can, all your controls up in the front, goes back to your controller in the back. Unplug that and plug it back in firmly, okay? The controller has 3 wires on it. We're going to disconnect all 3. You can disconnect all 3 at once or one at a time like I'm doing here. Just make sure you get them all. Unplug the motor extension cable, plug that back in very firmly. Unplug at the motor, plug that back in very firmly. Unplug at the battery, and at the battery, plug that back in very firmly. That's the first step in troubleshooting, okay? Check all your connections, make sure they're all good. You can turn your kit on at that point, give it a try, see if that has fixed your problem. Hopefully it has. If that does not fix your problem, okay, this is all on page 11 of the current manual also, so you have a step-by-step. You can walk through all these things. I know it's easier to watch the video, so hopefully this is helpful. Disconnect everything, put it back in, make sure your e-brakes are not on. The next thing to do is visibly inspect. If there's a problem anywhere, if there's a cut wire or something like that, you want to make sure that that's not your problem. A lot of times, a trouble point could be right here also, right out of the motor. Okay, there's a protective sleeve on there with some shrink and actually a coil to protect this wire from getting cut. If you hit something, if you drop the bike, if you do something else like that and you have cut wires here, that's going to be a problem. A lot of times what that'll do also, if you cut the wires, they're what's called phase wires. If they touch each other, this will lock up. So if you have a motor that's locking, this is where you want to look for a problem. And if you have that problem, you want to give us a call so we can figure out what to do about it, okay? Because it may need to be rewired, okay? So those are a few of the main problems. The other problems would be with your LCD. It's very important to set up your LCD correctly, okay? And we have another video that's all about that. When you first get your kit, you always want to make sure you have the correct settings. If you don't have the correct settings on your motor, your wheel size, your battery, you're going to run into trouble. And a lot of people have experienced a cutout because they have not set up their motor correctly. The motor setting on here is critical. You either have a 500 watt direct drive or you have a smaller geared 350 watt motor from us. Getting that setting correct in here with regard to the motor setting, that is critical. If you don't do that, you're going to experience cutoffs. It's going to cut out while you're riding. The whole system might shut off. Okay, so make sure you do that. There's another video dedicated to that. I'll just run you through this real quick. Up and down arrow together, excuse me, up arrow and set button. Up arrow and set button. In this case, we have a 500 watt motor. I'm just going to do this as an example. That corresponds to a number 46. This is in your manual, motor type, 500 watt direct drive, larger one, 46. So that's the correct setting. I'm going to save it by hitting set and up, and I know that's right. But if you're having any kind of cutout along your ride, that could be the explanation. I'm going to turn this off. The other explanation now for any kind of problems, if you don't have a disconnect, if you don't have a broken wire, if you don't have a chafed wire here at the axle, if you have your LCD set up correctly, if you're experiencing problems at this point, we got to look to something else, and that's your battery. The E-BikeKit is sold with a battery or without a battery, and it runs on any 36 or 48 volt battery. But if you're not getting the power you need, it could be because you have a battery problem. So we're going to go over a little bit of diagnosis here with regard to troubleshooting with your battery. We're going to do that in a separate video. We're going to come back and show you that in a minute.